I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. And you're an officer of the court and you're here advising us to be respectful of federal judges. And you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to Signal 76, where we cut through the establishment noise and deliver the hard truths that mainstream media refuses to tell you. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into an explosive Senate hearing that perfectly exposes the corrupt, politically motivated judicial activism that's been poisoning our courts for decades. What you're about to see will make your blood boil, but it will also open your eyes to exactly how the deep state operates right under our noses. Before we get started, Patriots, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. We're fighting an information war, and every subscription is a vote against the establishment propaganda machine. Smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments below, and watch this entire video because the bombshell revelation at the end will completely change how you view our supposedly impartial judicial system. We're building an army of informed patriots here at Signal 76, and we need you in the fight.
Would any of you advise a client to defy a federal court order?
No.
None of you would? How about you, Professor?
I mean, under most circumstances, we follow the government and private parties follow court orders. I suppose it's not, I would not rule out ever the possibility that in a sufficiently egregious order, there should be some consideration of whether there's a way.
So in some cases,
I think it's a qualified answer, yes.
In some cases you would.
In an extremely narrow band of cases, I think it would be considered, yes.
Okay. Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure what if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months abuse. No.
I've read your stuff and I've read your writings, and I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. So I'll leave you out of that. Do you think nationwide injunctions are being abused?
Certainly, Senator. I think that is.
They're being abused by both sides, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Both Republicans and Democrats are forum shopping, aren't they?
Certainly.
Professor, do you disagree with that?
I think both sides are abusing them. I agree.
Okay. Both sides.
Yeah.
There are no clean hands here. Now, your suggestion is that when a federal judge issues a nationwide injunction, there should be an automatic stay and an expedited right of appeal. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you disagree with that?
I haven't given enough thought to have a position on it, Senator.
I suspect, Professor, your answer will be it depends on who's president.
No, Senator.
Let me ask you about this. What if we had a rule? I was reading an article the other day. I'm not suggesting it. I just want your opinions. That said, if a president, any president, issues an executive order, let's say, that clearly violates settled Supreme Court precedent, that a federal judge can't issue a nationwide injunction. For example, if a president issued an order that said no one in America has right to counsel any longer, including but not limited to, in a felony case, having the government pay for your lawyer if you can't afford it. That clearly violates settled Gideon v. Wainwright. In that case, a judge has no authority or does have authority to issue a nationwide injunction. But in a case where the law is unclear, a judge should refrain from that. Now, obviously, we'd have to trust our judges, but we're supposed to be able to trust them anyway. What do you think about that?
I don't agree with that, Senator, because I think universal injunctions transgress the limitations under Article 3, even if the underlying merits are clear.
I happen to agree with you. I don't think there's any basis under Article 3, under Supreme Court precedent, under the English common law for nationwide injunctions. I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up. And many of them are like Professor Shaw here. If they like the president, they're against nationwide injunctions. If they don't like the president, they're for him. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but.
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If there's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical of some members of the Supreme
Court. You're embarrassed that you made that
Court.
statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer
Senator, it
of the
doesn't sound
court.
like something that
You know
I
what
would
I'm
say.
embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in the classroom,
on
sir.
your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
What we witnessed in the Senate hearing is nothing short of a masterclass in exposing the hypocrisy and political weaponization of our federal court system. Senator Kennedy, God bless him, pulled back the curtain on these so-called legal experts and revealed them for what they truly are, partisan political operatives masquerading as objective scholars. This is the kind of fearless questioning we need more of in Washington, and it's exactly why we must continue supporting leaders who aren't afraid to challenge the establishment. Let's break down what happened here, because every American patriot needs to understand the gravity of the situation. We have law professors, people who are supposedly teaching the next generation of lawyers and judges, openly admitting that they would advise clients to defy federal court orders under certain circumstances. Think about that for a moment. These are the same people who lecture us about the rule of law, yet they're willing to throw it out the window when it suits their political agenda. But here's where it gets really interesting, patriots. When Senator Kennedy pressed these experts about nationwide injunctions, their true colors came shining through. One professor in particular got absolutely demolished when Kennedy pointed out their blatant hypocrisy. When Obama was president and conservative judges issued nationwide injunctions against his policies, this professor was crying about judicial overreach, calling judges politicians in robes and crass political actors. But now that Trump is back in the White House, suddenly these same nationwide injunctions taste like pumpkin pie to them. This is the perfect example of what we've been saying all along about the left's relationship with institutional power. They don't actually believe in principles or consistency. They believe in winning at any cost, and they'll twist any legal theory, abandon any precedent, and betray any principle if it helps them achieve their political objectives. When the law works in their favor, they're constitutional scholars. When it doesn't, they're revolutionaries ready to tear down the system. Senator Kennedy's takedown was absolutely beautiful to watch. He didn't just expose this professor's hypocrisy, he demonstrated the fundamental problem with our legal education system. These professors are indoctrinating students with partisan political beliefs disguised as legal scholarship. They're not teaching objective constitutional law. They're creating activist lawyers who view the legal system as just another tool for political warfare. The discussion about nationwide injunctions reveals something even more sinister about how our judicial system has been corrupted. Both sides acknowledged that forum shopping is rampant, that lawyers are deliberately seeking out friendly judges in favorable jurisdictions to get the rulings they want. This isn't justice. It's judicial roulette, where the outcome depends more on which judge you draw than on the actual merits of your case. Think about what this means for ordinary Americans, patriots. While these political operatives are playing games with our court system, real people are suffering the consequences. Families are torn apart by inconsistent rulings. Businesses are destroyed by conflicting judicial orders. Communities are left in chaos because activist judges think they know better than elected representatives and the Constitution itself. And then came the absolute knockout punch. Senator Kennedy confronted one of these professors about calling Supreme Court justices evil. Evil? Can you believe that? This is someone who's supposed to be teaching respect for our judicial institutions. And they're publicly calling sitting Supreme Court justices evil because they don't agree with their political positions. When confronted with their own words, what did this professor do? They tried to deny it, claimed it might have been a transcription error, refused to take responsibility for their inflammatory rhetoric. This is the kind of intellectual cowardice that's destroying our institutions from within. They want to dish out the attacks, but they don't have the backbone to stand behind their words when called out. Senator Kennedy's response was perfect. I'm embarrassed that you're teaching our kids. That's exactly how every parent in America should feel about these partisan activists who have infiltrated our law schools. They're not educators. They're indoctrination specialists, poisoning young minds with their political hatred and teaching them to view the law as just another weapon in partisan warfare. This hearing exposes a much larger problem that patriots need to understand. Our legal system has been captured by political operatives who use their positions of authority to advance partisan agendas while hiding behind the pretense of objective scholarship. They demand respect for judicial authority when it serves their purposes, but they're perfectly willing to undermine that same authority when it doesn't. The hypocrisy runs so deep that these professors can't even see it anymore. They've convinced themselves that their political beliefs are so righteous that any means of advancing them are justified. When conservative judges rule against liberal policies, that's judicial activism. That must be resisted. When liberal judges rule against conservative policies, that's constitutional interpretation. That must be respected. This is why President Trump's judicial appointments were so crucial and why the left fought them so viciously. They know that fair, constitutionally minded judges threaten their ability to impose their agenda through judicial fiat. They prefer activist judges who will legislate from the bench rather than interpret the law as written. Patriots, this is why your engagement matters so much. These professors and activist lawyers are counting on regular Americans staying ignorant about how the system really works. They want to operate in the shadows, corrupting our institutions while maintaining the facade of objectivity and professionalism. But hearings like this one shine a light on their operations. When senators like Kennedy ask tough questions and demand accountability, these operatives are exposed for what they really are. Their carefully constructed masks slip, and we see the partisan hatred underneath. The fact that a law professor would call Supreme Court justices evil and then try to deny it when confronted tells you everything you need to know about the state of legal education in America. These people have lost all sense of professional responsibility and institutional respect. They're so consumed with political hatred that they can't even maintain basic decorum when discussing the highest court in our land. This is the resistance that President Trump faces every single day. It's not just political opposition. It's institutional sabotage by people who have abandoned their professional responsibilities in service of partisan warfare. They're willing to destroy public confidence in our courts, our laws, and our Constitution if it helps them achieve their political objectives. That's why channels like Signal 76 are so important, patriots. We're not just entertainment. We're education. We're not just commentary. We're counter-programming to the establishment narrative. Every view, every like, every share helps us reach more Americans with the truth they're not getting anywhere else. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because this fight is far from over. The deep state isn't going to give up their institutional power without a battle, and we need every patriot armed with the truth and ready to engage. Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this video with everyone you know, and let's keep building this movement for truth and constitutional government.